Good morning, students. It's Tuesday, December 12th, and this is the lecture for week one of Python programming. So just a couple of background questions you might have. Why are we learning Python? Well, some basic programming skills is essential for work as a data scientist. Is Python essential? Maybe, maybe not. There are a lot of job openings out there that I look at every day, and most of them call for either Python or R. A lot of them call for both. So Python is what I would term a more of a basic programming language, whereas R, which we'll be learning in a couple of weeks, not a couple of weeks, couple of classes, so about 4 weeks from now, is more of a statistical software package that was created. Both of these are open source programs, which means the documentation for them can be anywhere from really lousy to actually pretty good. There's some pretty good documentation out there. It also means that if you want to do something in Python, like maybe you want to run a t-test, for example, there might be 5 to 30 different ways to run the t-test, because since it's open source, people can go and build their own functions and then publish them, and there might be lots of people building the identical or nearly identical thing. They'll have different names. Some of them will be intuitive, some of them won't, but you'll find that there's quite often many different ways to do things. So that leads to an area which might be viewed as a little bit of a frustration for some of you students. There are going to be lots of times during the course. Okay, let me back up. We're going to spend the next 2 weeks learning some very basic stuff about Python. After that, and after a couple more courses, one on databases and then one on R, you'll be asked to use Python or R or both or Excel or Google Sheets to do, eventually we've got to do some statistical analysis. We've got to get into some calculations. The good news is all those calculations happen behind the scene. You don't have to explicitly do very many of them at all. However, and I'll quote unquote bad news for you is that the instructions on how to do this probably won't be explicitly laid out within the curriculum. That's for 2 reasons. Number one, like I said before, there might be multiple ways to do something, and I don't want to get you tied into one way of doing something just because it's the way I told you how to do it. So that's one reason. Reason number 2, and this is probably the more important one, the way Python and R work is, like I say, there's not a generalized location where a whole bunch of great documentation with great examples exist. There are thousands and thousands of web locations where you can go and find how to do what you're trying to do. For example, if you're trying to do a t-test, you can type into Google, say t-test using Python. You'll get pages and pages and pages of people who've done this. Some of them will just be question and answer periods. Some of them will be actually very well laid out. Some of them will be t-test on steroids. It'll be a bunch of stuff that you don't really need to do for the problem you're working on, and maybe way over your head. Some of them will be very technical. Some of them will be not technical at all. So it will be in your best interest to poke around and become accustomed to the ability of using the web to find out how to do things. This is very different from when I first started programming 30 years ago. Boy, we didn't have any of those resources, and you just basically had to read out a book, and if what you read in the book didn't make any sense, you were kind of stuck. You had to find somebody who knew what they were doing, or you just couldn't proceed at all. Well, it's a lot different now. If you find something that doesn't make sense or doesn't resonate with you very well, that's okay. There's 50 other guys that have said the exact same thing using different words or different terminology or different approaches, and maybe one of those will resonate with you. So there's no handy-dandy lookup place to go and find out all the things you need to know about Python. That's probably going to be frustrating to some of you, and I understand, and it might even make some of you feel like, man, this curriculum sucks. They didn't give us any of the instructions we need. Okay, like I said, this is on purpose because I'm trying to prepare you for what your job is going to be when you get out of the work field. Now, if once you leave here and you go get a job as a data analyst or a junior data scientist somewhere, depending on how big the company is, it may very well be that they have statistical software in-house that it's licensed and got great documentation and lot of users that are really good at it, and you're going to have to learn that. Don't be afraid of that, because all statistical software programs, and to the extent that we're going to be using Python, they're all very similar. They do the same things. Maybe they name them differently. Maybe they have a little bit different approach for inserting arguments into a function or something like that. But they're all doing pretty much the same thing. Don't be fearful to learn how to use R, learn how to use Python, and then go take a job where you got to learn SAS, or you've got to learn Minitab or MATLAB or Jump or SPSS or something else, because when all the dust settles, they're all very similar to one another. So anyway, the approach we're taking here is to get you fully immersed in Python and R, because we're trying to, since they're open source, it's easy on the Pocketbook too. We're trying to keep costs down as much as we possibly can. Okay, so having said that, I personally, I have some programming skills. Most of them are in tools other than Python and R. So I did not write this curriculum for these lessons in this Python course. They're written by a coworker of mine. I thought he did a great job. Good news is I'm working with a lot of people that have great resources that can help you get through the difficult spots. Whereas I personally, if you called me and said, hey, I have a question about this and this and this, I might not be able to answer your question, because I haven't used it a lot, and I don't use it a lot. And something I need to beef up a little bit here as we progress along. But for the time being, it's not one of my real strong points. The good news is Angelina James, who is the mentor for the data science track, is a much better programmer than I am. She's got a lot of skills, and she can answer a lot of questions, so she can be very helpful. Okay, having said that, what are we going to cover? Well, these first 5 lessons in the Python are, getting some of the real basic fundamental things down. First of all, I'm going to, go through how do you load Python onto your PC, and how do you load an editor onto there. Then the next lesson will be mostly on operations, mostly mathematical operations. There will be some other operations like print function and things like that, but mostly, these are going to be, hey, can you add 2 numbers together? Can you divide 2 numbers? Can you check to determine whether this is greater than that? Things like that is what you're going to be faced with. So we've got a lesson on mathematical operations. The next lesson is called lists and loops, and you'll very quickly find that programming, the reason we do it is because computers are able to do things, tedious things, very quickly, and with just a little bit of guidance from us, they can take care of big, messy calculations and jobs, which we just don't want to do. They're tedious. You get bored. You get tired of doing it. It's just the same thing over and over and over and over. Computers are perfectly designed for stuff like that. So you'll come to realize lots of times information is stored in lists, and that if we loop through the list, we go line by line, go to this line, do this thing, now go to the next line, do the same thing, go to the next line, do the same thing again. The looping function is a great way to start getting into the actual programming part. So that's what lesson 3 is about. Then lesson 4 is about dictionaries. A dictionary in programming is what it sounds like. You go to your dictionary right now, and you have a word, and you look up the meaning. Well, same thing with a dictionary in Python is you say, hey, here's the name, it's Mike. Here's the age, it's 52. Here's the height, it's 5'8", stuff like that. So you're defining dictionaries, relationships between variable names and the variable value. All right, and then to end up the week, I'm going to go into lesson 5, which is on functions. And a function is just simply a set of commands that you might perform over and over and over again, that you want to, rather than one line at a time, writing the command one line at a time, you might want to compile it into a function, give the function some fancy name, and then you can call the function up whenever you want to execute those several commands all at the same time. So you don't do functions for everything. You just start to look as you're working. This is very true in the career of data scientist. There'll be times where you're doing something that you've done 1,000 times before, and you're going to do it 1,000 more times. And it might even be sort of complex, but if it's pretty much the same every single time, it's easy to put together a function or script or something like that that will help you to, with the click of a button or the call of a single command, go ahead and execute that entire set of commands, list of commands, all at the same time. So that's just a brief overview. We don't have enough history yet to say, hey, I know where the potholes are in this curriculum in these first 5 lessons of Python. So I don't have a lot of instruction for you right now as to things like, oh, watch out for this because this is tough, or watch out for that. We will develop that over time, but right now we don't have those. So, so if you have questions, please contact, like say, Angelina or myself. She's probably first line of defense. Is probably best for her to field your questions, and then, you know, in reality, if she can't, there's not a very good chance that I'll be able to either with the Python stuff. Like I say, when it gets to the, you know, the statistics and the math stuff, that's my wheelhouse. I've got all that, a lot of history with that. But anyway, we will find the answers you need to get through what you need to do. So this one more thing about the Python course is it's different from the basic statistics course in that there will be some times where you will have to create executable code and then turn that in. And there's a method for doing that. So if you're struggling with that at all, get in touch with Angelina and she'll help you get through that also. Okay, this has been a short lesson, but really don't have anything else to say. It doesn't look like there's anybody online attending. So hopefully if you're watching, well, obviously if you're watching this, you're watching it recorded, which is fine. However, if you are available when the lecture is being given live, it's really good time because quite often the lecture won't take very much time, and then good opportunity to ask questions and get answers through the Zoom meeting, and then other people can take advantage of the fact that you asked questions and got the answers you needed and help them also. So anyway, if you have any questions, be sure and get in touch with us. Don't struggle and anguish over this for hours and hours and hours and days because you're struggling with something. You know, it's okay to fiddle around with something for a while, 15, 20 minutes maybe. But if you're not getting anywhere, you're just spinning your wheels and you're not making any progress, it's time to have somebody step in and give you a hand. So I encourage you to do that. Okay, that's it. Have a great week and hope to hear from you soon. Thanks. Bye.